Hey, welcome to our webinar today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lewis Lovelock from Clearvision. I'm here with my colleague Craig Parker, who I'll hand over to in a moment. But obviously today we're here to talk about the HP Quality Center, or HPALM, or the Micro Focus Quality Center, as it's now known as, to the qTest platform. So I'll hand over to Craig to do a bit of an intro on himself and a bit of a background on Clearvision.
Thank you, Lewis. Yes, hello everyone. Yes, Craig Parker. Been here coming up to 10 months or so now here at Clearvision. Been working exclusively with QASymphony and qTest products. Here at Clearvision has been up and running. I guess a lot of you will already know about Clearvision, but a bit of background, it has been going for 20 years now, almost to the day. Created by our CEO and co-founder Jerry Toombs. We have developed into Atlassian's #1 platinum partner over these years. We're a member of the Charlie Council, or the Atlassian Advisory Panel, as it's now known. We deal with all of the Atlassian products and have professional services built around those. So we deal with Jira Service Desk, HipChat, Stride, which is the new Slack killer, they're saying. Bamboo, Bitbucket, and all of the rest, and the professional services that we have created. I've been around consultancy, migrations, training, hosting, IT support. And then over time we've developed partnerships with other companies to help support the full SDLC, or the software development lifecycle. These partners cover anything from code security and review with checkmarks and sonotype, powerful diagramming with lucid charts, creating dynamic social intranets which will boost your existing Confluence pages with Linchpin, collaboration support and personality profiling with Teamify, and obviously the big one, which we're here today about QASymphony and the qTest platform. So this is the industry's #1 enterprise testing platform for agile teams and the #1 alternative to HPQC.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
So a bit of background on myself. I've been quite young myself, but I've been in the technical background for the past 6 or 7 years now. I originally started learning and getting qualifications in Microsoft products. God help us. And then saw the light at the end of the tunnel and kind of made the switch to learn more about the testing world and software development. And now I specialize myself in the qTest platform from a technical perspective. I give all of our demos. I also deliver training, both an admin and a user level, on the qTest platform itself as well. Fun fact about myself, I once met Neville Longbottom in the pub, had a few beers with him. He's a really nice guy. So hand over to Craig to do his intro and his background.
Got to think of a fun fact that's going to match up with Neville Longbottom. So I'm slightly older than Lewis's, 24, 25 years. I've been in the IT industry for nearly 15 years, mainly around training and IT support and consultancy. Have obviously been exclusively working with QASymphony and the qTest product, so although maybe not as minutely technical as Lewis is about the product, still am the one that will organise and work day-to-day with clients, help scheduling the consultancy and the training with Lewis, get the implementations in and all those sorts of things. And obviously after this webinar, hopefully working with a few of you on migrating you across from HP Quality Center over to qTest. My fun fact would be that Craig David used to be our goalkeeper when I was growing up playing football. So he was 3 times the size when I played with him, so it doesn't look like the Craig David we all know and love now, but he still used to rap and sing when we were playing football, which was quite amusing.
Really? I did not know that about Craig David. I actually went to go see him a few weeks ago in concert. So
I should have said hello from me. Good friends.
That centre back that just in front of him. Do you remember that, Craig? Yeah. So just a bit on QASymphony then. So they are the fastest growing test company in the world right now, and the 8th fastest growing software company in the US. Just been named that by Inc. 500. So a bit about the qTest platform. So QASymphony have created it, and they say they create software for the real world. They're building software testing solutions for your agile teams, agile test management, teams that care about test analytics. And if you're really getting to sort of that BDD and DevOps culture, then they have a lot of solutions for the entire organization, rather than just being a point tool. And again, those agile teams using Jira, which most people do. They have qTest seamlessly integrates with Jira through webhooks technology rather than more of a scheduled sync. Okay, so today we're going to be going through a rough agenda and starting off talking about kind of the two different visions between Micro Focus, who have just acquired HP Quality Center from HP itself, and the different vision that QASymphony has with the qTest platform. So we're going to be touched on today, really what do you do and how do you replace something that is a legacy solution like Quality Center or like an ALM that's really tied to a specific vendor like Micro Focus or HP, and what are some of the methods you can do and how can we help you migrate between the two systems. And a bit later on, we're going to be hearing from one of QASymphony's customers from G Digital, which is Jose Franca. And Jose is going to be telling us a bit more about his migration from HP Quality Center and the reason why they chose QASymphony and the qTest platform. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to be moving on to the main topic here, is why you're all here, of the qTest platform. So one of the biggest questions that you as the audience might be here today thinking is, well, why do you or why should you migrate from Quality Center? Well, as you probably might know, there was back in September, the merger was complete between HP Software and Micro Focus. So for those who don't understand or know who Micro Focus are, they are traditionally, they're a UK company, but their business model, they acquire legacy software and they then quite simply live off the license sales and live off those teams that require the software but haven't yet migrated from it.
And the maintenance as well. So maintenance.
Yeah, thank you, and the maintenance. So they don't really invest in the products. They don't invest in R&D. They just simply acquire the product, don't maintain it, and just live off the license renewals from teams that have not yet migrated or don't feel like they can migrate, because the migration from Quality Center is a mammoth task. We're not gonna polish it. That's what it is, and we're here to help you and show you how we can make things a lot easier.
So yeah, that's kind of the theme of change. They've given some leading analysts in the industry some food for thought. Like Gartner is basically backing up a report now that was used back in September 2016, where they basically put everybody on notice that there probably needs to be some migration options open with this sort of going down, with this happening. The deal obviously took a year of due diligence to get through, and now it is happening. There was some hopes that it wouldn't from some people, but now it's definitely happening. This is just where you need to keep your options open about the migrations, and we're going to touch on these a little bit later. But it's really laid out a vision of where we're going to be successful and how we're going to be successful in working with you. With Micro Focus, they have brought out the recent 4-year plan, which we will bring up. This is unedited, this is in their own words, with a kind of investors first, customers second approach. One of the things that Micro Focus had to do to go out and take on HP was to acquire debt, basically in the form of investors. And these investors are who need paying back first before the customers see any benefit. And this means that, unfortunately, things like R&D and investment in a tool and investment in new features or the user, the UI, it is gonna take a back seat until the investors are paid back. So this is one of the big things that is going to be an issue now.
Right, and the reason that they mostly had to acquire that debt was because HP was actually a larger company than Micro Focus. So for Micro Focus to go ahead and complete that acquisition, they had to, as Craig touched on, acquire a lot of debt, and that then directly affects the customers who buy the product. So, and there's a lot of points here, and we encourage everyone on the webinar to go take a look. This is all public knowledge. It's all in the news. It's on both the respective companies' websites, and really, this the slide you're seeing now is taken from the Micro Focus website, and you can see it's all about rationalizing and stabilizing their growth. They kind of it really sort of confirms what the fears that Quality Center customers had while the acquisition was going through, and now that it has actually gone through.
There's already been substantial cost cutting, people removed as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's a part of that process is they've had to cut a lot of the developer team, I believe, as well.
So we obviously think that companies, clients, our clients, and the companies that are on here today that may not be using us at the moment or have qTest, we think you deserve better. And one of the big things that the QA CEO has been saying over and over again, which is the fact that we're really looking to invest and expand rather than rationalise and stabilise. And again, you can see our 3-year plan on our website and how we're going to be investing across the business, new products, existing products. So new and existing clients will benefit continuously throughout the year. And it's more about thinking where companies like QASymphony, where we can expand on a vision set out 4 years ago, and we're now one of the top testing companies in the industry. And it is about scaling, expanding the enterprise, growing the market leaders, and really sort of broaden our channel partners and broaden our research and just invest and invest and invest.
Right, and it's not just, apart from the investment as well, which is obviously the research and development that's not going to be happening. There's a movement from the customers who are demanding more from tools as well. So as teams are moving towards an agile transformation and using Jira and more of their sort of maybe BDD and their automation behaviors and the frameworks, there's technical features that Quality Center lacks in those respects, especially with, for instance, the integration to Jira can actually only be achieved through third-party plugins. That
Jam plugin, I
yeah,
believe, isn't it?
exactly,
Yeah.
the Jam plugin that sits between the two systems and sort of creates that bridge. So there's even the need as teams get a lot more agile for them to find a different test case management tool and different testing software, as well as the fact that Micro Focus is slowly being ground to a halt with Quality Center slowly being ground to a halt with Micro Focus.
Yeah, and I've also found talking to clients as well that if they do have HP Quality Center, they also will have a smaller day-to-day testing system, like a plug-in, like a Zephyr or a TestRail, Qmetry, one of these. Good testing, but a good testing tool, sorry, but it can't do the whole job. It can't sort of scale up, do the enterprise sort of features, or it doesn't have certain features that people get from HP Quality Center or they need from the integrating with their CI/CD tools and BDD and DevOps and all those kinds of things. So rather than trying to manage two different systems, this large system, legacy stuff, and all of the problems that comes with, they also then have to deal with the smaller tools and some of the issues they have with that as well. So this is really where our system can just replace all of this, migrate all of that work across that you've already done, and then start to give you a lot more options.
Right, exactly. So the smaller tools that they're putting in place, the Qmetry, the TestRail, they're more point tools. They do a job, they do it very well, but it doesn't scale, it doesn't move with your team as your team perhaps matures from more of a waterfall to an agile to a DevOps. So this is where we call the qTest a platform because it can grow and you can utilize more of the features as your team grows with it. So we've obviously now touched on, you get the idea of the Micro Focus acquisition. If you want any more information on the takeover of Quality Center or ALM, then there's a lot on the internet. Just do a bit of research. It's not that difficult to
Contact
find.
us directly. We'll send you the information. I just don't want to bore everybody now.
Exactly. So moving on to sort of how we can help you perform the migration. Just as you can see on this slide here, there's a few challenges that we found and QASymphony have found. So together that we think teams are facing, and it might be reasons why they're not sure. They're a bit nervous about the migration between off Quality Center. So there's a few things here. You've got transferring attachments. So if you've got your attachments in your test steps and you want to bring those over because that is your record, or as you can see, switching deployments. So whether you want to go from server to cloud or cloud to server,
Data center.
yeah. So then there's splitting objects into systems. So you perhaps actually using Quality Center to manage your requirements and also your defects, and of course test cases. But actually, you want to put test cases in another tool, but send your requirements and defects to Jira. So you're actually not just moving your data from one tool to another, but you're splitting it across various systems. Obviously, what's most important to teams is traceability. So you want to keep that traceability, and we can bring that across as well. And then you kind of want to, it's an internal decision with you guys of how you're going to migrate. And you could do a one-time live migration. Everyone finishes on Friday afternoon. They finish in Quality Center. You migrate over the weekend. They come in Monday morning, and over the weekend we flip the switch, and now you're suddenly working in qTest. Or do you perhaps want to do a bit of a steady move over? So you come to a point, you go, right, we're now going to start all new projects in qTest, and anything old we're going to keep working in Quality Center, and then eventually move the data over. Or if you feel like the data isn't relevant, you're just going to archive it off.
So these we put in there that these are challenges to migrations, but there are also options. So this is what we'll start to talk to you about, or talk to organisations about when we come to doing the migrations. These are some of the things that we need to speak about. So this starts to make you think about your data, what you've got in HP Quality Center. So we're talking about transfer and attachments. Now people will want to move because they think it's just the safest way of taking everything. And if this data is dead and it's not needed, then you don't need to put them. If these attachments aren't being used, they're not relevant anymore, then you don't need them. It's not. I know people like to keep hold of things and hoard things because it's always been there and that's where it's always been done. But it's not necessary to do it that way. So there's plenty of options here, and migrating in a big bang or migrating in phases. This is stuff that we will work with you to try and keep it as business as usual as possible.
Right, and in terms of how actually we are going to migrate, there's kind of four options as you see here. And so the first one is, of course, you just start fresh. You realise that all your data in Quality Center is probably old. You don't need most of it, and actually you're going to just sort of turn your Quality Center off and put it into like a read-only state, or you're just going to archive it off, and you're going to start everything, all your new testing, brand new in qTest.
This can also be where companies have done that dual tools that I was talking about earlier, where they've got HP Quality Center and another tool in place. And what they've started to realise is over the last 6 months, 12 months, most of the work they're doing is in this new tool, and it being a point tool, it is not giving you the same features and scalability as HPQC, but it's just being used day to day because of how easy it is to use. So starting afresh isn't as scary as it sounds. You may have already been doing it without realising.
Right, thank you. And there's obviously you can see the Excel import. So most tools can do a sort of CSV export of the data. We can then read that and bring that into qTest itself. Of course, that isn't going to bring across your attachments, which is one of the limitations of that. And then the main one we're going to focus on today is the one highlighted in orange there, is actually the HP migration tool that we can offer. So this was a tool built by QASymphony. We have access to it. We have a lot of experience in using it. And essentially what we can do is from your Quality Center environment, you'll export your data as a QCP file. And then our tool simply just reads that QCP file. You can transfer your attachments, your test cases, your requirements, all the structures in releases and cycles. We can bring that all across, and we can map it to your qTest environment and really bring that data across in one big go. And of course, if none of these three options are going to work for you, we can help. As you can see, we've got a custom box there, so we can come up with a solution. We can work with you and really perhaps find a solution that's going to work for you. Perhaps you might want an amalgamation of all three of the Start Fresh, the migration tool, and an Excel import. There's ways we can work. There's always a way around the challenges you might be facing. So more on our migration tool. So as you can see through this slide, we've kind of listed the pros and cons of our migration tool, because we're not going to say it's the most perfect thing ever. So obviously your pros, there's a low cost. So you can we already have the tool. There's just going to be a small charge in us using it, but it's our time to help you do that. So you don't have to go out and buy another massive piece of software just to help you migrate at one time. Second point there, complete migration of objects and traceability. I just touched on that a moment ago. So traceability is something that a lot of teams care about, a lot of companies care about. We can maintain that traceability as we bring over your data. And we can migrate project by project as well. So if perhaps you still want some teams working in your main projects, and to begin with, we migrate some of the older legacy projects you might have in Quality Center. We can do those first, and we can kind of structure how we bring across that data to how you might be working, or how to limit the downtime best for you. Of course, there's obviously going to be some cons. So this is probably going to be a one-time migration. We're not going to migrate the data or copy it and set up a sync between the two systems. That's not how it works. Once we pull the data out, that data is in Quality Center is now going to effectively be your old data, because you'll be updating it in qTest. So we're not going to be syncing between the two systems, and we can't really support. There's not really a big bang approach. That's more of a limitation of HP Quality Center. So for any of you guys who've ever tried or have ever administered Quality Center, trying to you can export these QCP files no problem, but generally if they get too large, over something about 4 gigabytes, that's when Quality Center gets unhappy.
Goes a bit wobbly.
It does. It kind of falls over, and well, more than it does already anyway, and it can be a bit of a challenge. So what we will break those down into sort of 5 to 10 projects a day, just to make sure the migration goes smoothly, rather than us trying to do a one big bang approach and it completely falls over.
It depends on the size as well. So we obviously, before we start any of this work, we go in there and do a review and take a bit of a health check and see how stable everything is, how big the files are. So we'll lay all this out before we start work, obviously.
Yeah, and as you can see on this slide now, for a comparison of methods, just a bit of information for you guys to take away. So we've structured out the on the to the left, as you can see, the different challenges that we find teams are facing, and then across the top, the different methods we've highlighted here today. So you can kind of see what's going to slightly cost more and take more of a time, and then food for thought really, to weigh up how you might want to bring across the data and what's going to best work for you, but then also how that's going to work possibly for your budgets as well. So one of the biggest case studies that we've just shown you here for one of QASymphony's customers was just as an example to give you the migration that was completed. So Craig, I know you probably have a bit more info on this that I have. Do you want to just run through it?
Yeah, I mean, all the relevant information is, you can see on the slide here, the projects that we migrated and the objects that came across, so you can almost have a bit of a comparison of what you currently got in your system to what you can see here, and just have some mental arithmetic to how long it's going to take us to migrate you. Now, this was almost, I think, a year or two ago now, so we've done 30, 40 migrations, so there's a whole host of experience that has now been in place since this. So it really starts off with a conversation with anybody here who just wants to find out what the potential is and how it's possible. We need to come in, we need to take a look at what you have, what objects are in place, and what needs bringing over and what's necessary to bring over. And these are sorts of things that Jose is probably going to touch on when he starts talking. So obviously these are the things that you need to be aware of when you're starting to sort of think about how you want your new system to look in comparison to your old system. So, but we will help with all of these conversations, and yeah, I mean, we'll get Jose to have a little conversation and join in now with some information and see what you think about comparing your situation to GE Digital's.
Yeah, we'll bring Jose in now. So I'll hand over.
Jose, how are we?
Good. How are you?
I'm all good, sir. Thank you for joining us. Just wondering if you can give us some background on GE Digital, your role there, some of your personal background, some of the things you are doing with IoT testing, and some of the excellent work that you've been doing, if you could.
Sure. So first, thanks for the opportunity to be here with you and share a bit about our partnership, QASymphony and GE Digital. So my name is José Franca. I've been in the IT industry for 20 years, being the last 15 years in the quality assurance area. So I held positions varying from technical management, commercial, working with manual testing, automation, performance, security, establishing a vision for QA departments, helping the leadership team to build and QA organizations, also leading QA teams, and from a little bit from the commercial side, also helping on developing QA offerings, working with teams across the globe. But really, I'm passionate about IoT, and about 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to join this startup company based in the Greater Vancouver area in Canada, which was called Bits2. It is an industrial Internet of Things. So they basically, when Kevin and Alex, they are the founder and co-founder of Bits2, they're basically looking for resolving this data integration issue from the IoT, from the industrial Internet of Things space. So when you look at data coming from device, different source of data, dirty data, clean data, and you try to integrate this, it's a real challenge. And these guys, they're looking for resolving that issue, and they came up with a platform called MIX Core. The MIX Core, it was basically a platform for collecting data from different data sources, applying some artificial intelligence to that data, which would allow users of the platform to basically create applications to visualize that data in a way that makes sense for them. And I'll provide an example that I think it's going to make it more clear. So one of our customers, it's in the utilities industry. It's a gas and oil company. They have these pipes spread all over the city, and those pipes they have sensors. They wanted to understand exactly the temperature, the volume, the pressure of these guys going through the pipes. But not only that, they wanted to also start predicting things. So let's say we have so by collecting the data from the weather, by collecting data from fire departments, and ingesting all of data into the MIX Core platform, we were able to basically predict if, for example, this fire would hit a pipe because the wind was pointing to south within this specific speed. So it's quite an interesting platform. They came up with the platform. They developed the first version of the platform. And a year ago, GE got really interested about the work that Kevin and Alex did and started, and then we all helped improving. But GE got really interested about it and decided to acquire Bits2. I'm now the director of quality assurance and release from an organization called Predix APG. This is within GE Digital, Predix Application Platform Group. We are responsible for applications that are created within the industrial Internet of Things space. And we are now expanding. We are expanding for aviation. We are collecting data from turbines and helping pilots understand real time what's going on with the turbine. We're collecting data from windmills, helping the energy industry to be more efficient. So it has been great so far.
Excellent. That is obviously, it's very interesting, and some of the stuff you're doing around the predictive and preventative stuff, so preventing fires and the harmful things that are happening to people. It's great to hear some of the differences that you've been able to make and some of the sort of different things that people and companies are able to do around testing. So you use Jira and Confluence and adopting a lot of agile tools. So this is where you started to look at more of an agile testing tool that could support you where HP Quality Center was letting you down. And qTest was chosen. I'm just wondering if you could go into a few of the areas of what stood out about qTest and QASymphony, and what made you choose this tool sort of back in March 2016.
Correct. So when I joined Bits2, basically we didn't have a proper QA process. We didn't have tools. We are looking for selecting a vendor which would only make sure our immediate needs were met, but also looking long term how we could expand on that. So what I did was I basically came up with this matrix where I would look at different vendors from 7 different perspectives. I was looking at, from a general perspective, how easy to use was the tool. I was looking how easy to use was creating project users, how if I would have the ability to export, import data, back up the data. From a QA engineering perspective, I was looking at thinking about my team, how easy it would be to develop and execute a test, how easy it would be to raise a bug. Also from a customization perspective, all the fields that the needs that I have specifically for one project or for my team, if I would be able to customize fields, customize workflows. From an integration perspective, of course, I need to integrate with the Atlassian tools. From a metrics perspective, if the tool would offer me any out-of-the-box metrics, and also if I would have the ability to customize those metrics to my specific needs. From a traceability perspective, if every time I release, if I would have to go to any specific release and see how many bugs I have, and if those bugs are related to a specific story, so from a traceability, and also from an automation, right? So we have a test automation framework that we want to integrate with the tool. So qTest really helped us in terms of, it was a good UI. It was, again, really simple for the end user to operate the tool. One thing that it really caught my attention was, and I think we all have a lot of this scenario when you have to create your test coverage, and then you develop your test case, and when you start executing your test case, you realize something changed, and then you need to update your test case. And it really offered us the opportunity to update the test case real time, not only update, but also version that test case that you're updating while you're executing the test case. Standard out-of-the-box graphs, integration. So it really stood out in these 7 different aspects, and it was also a tool that I took as we went to the proof of concept. I took it to my team, and then my team all said, okay, so let's move on. This is what we need now, and we have the ability to keep improving on this.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Jose. I know that you looked at Quality Center before deciding to go to QASymphony because of the Micro Focus merger. I know a lot of Jira users also look at add-ons in the Atlassian marketplace first before deciding they need an enterprise-grade solution. Did you have any experience with any of the add-ons at all?
I did. So I believe I have 2 points there. One is when you look at add-ons, Jira itself, it's a bug tracking tool. It is a filter-based tool. And when you look at a test case management tool, you're really looking at a tool where you can basically create and continue improving your test suite, expanding on your test suite. And once you have that done, you create our test coverage, and then you start running your tests. So running your test is basically an instance of a test that you created. And after you run the test, you need to have the ability to pull the reports in an easy manner. So the add-ons, and this may be my only experience here, but the add-ons are basically very similar to Jira. And when I look at creating my test suite, executing my test, pulling reports, it was a little bit confusing. For me, it was a little bit confusing. And the other thing that I was concerned about was workflows. My experience is, so when you look at Jira and the add-ons, and you need to start establishing workflows, bug workflow, story workflow, test approval workflow, those are different workflows. And if you make a mistake of, say you have 10 projects in your Jira instance, and someone for some reason start using one of those workflows that are supposed to be a testing workflow, any change to the workflow would end up causing an impact to projects. And I was concerned about mixing those things. So that was one of the decisions that helped me also going through making sure qTest would satisfy from that perspective.
Yeah, that segues into our earlier discussion around best of breed. If I switch to this slide, we can show you are connecting the dots between your best of breed solutions and you saw earlier qTest fit really nicely with some of these other solutions. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. So let me start by saying we are looking for an efficient, continuous integration, continuous delivery solution. I really want the ability to start uncovering bugs earlier in the software development life cycle. So of course we'd have cost reduction, and also predict when my release would be ready for production. So I'll go over the diagram, and I'll point out where you guys are really helping us there. So product management, right? They come and say, hey, I need this feature on the next release. So what happened is first we basically populate our backlog. We create stories, we size those stories, and then we assign those stories to sprint. That's the Jira software there. Once the stories are assigned to a sprint, the development team will come and create a task and start coding. That code will get reviewed and committed into Bitbucket. Just before I move into the testing part, so as we create those stories into Jira, the integration between qTest and Jira, we have the sprint planning. We know exactly which stories are part of the sprint. The next day, what we do from a QA perspective, it's the QA sprint planning. And that is possible because of the synchronization between Jira and qTest. We have the ability to see exactly which stories are part of the sprint. And then my team start creating manual and automation coverage within qTest for those stories. So then the software, the QA automation engineer, he basically goes, okay, so I know what my scope is for this sprint, as well as the QA, the guy that is developing the manual test case, he or she knows already the scope for that specific sprint. So the automation engineer goes, create the code, create a test, create the code, get the code reviewed, and then the code gets committed into Bitbucket. So once the code gets committed from the development, from QA side, from an automation QA side, the story is marked as ready for testing. And when the story is marked as ready for testing, basically Jenkins, we have the Jenkins as our CI/CD tool. It keeps monitoring Bitbucket. And when it sees, okay, so this is ready for testing, this is committed, it has been reviewed, now let me create a build. Once the build is created, it is deployed into what you see there, predicts. It's deployed into a QA staging environment. And this is when, as the build is deployed, we have our automated suite, which gets executed against the build. And by the way, this is very that's very interesting. Our automated suite, we have about 1,000 test cases automated, and before we were seeing we would need 4 hours to execute those 1,000 test cases. We implemented one technology called Docker, which reduced that to 30 minutes. So now in 30 minutes we have the build fully tested from an automation perspective. This is where so once we have the test case, the automated test case committed, one action is create a build, execute the test on the build. The other action that we have, and this is again back to qTest, we have the ability to automatically upload those automated scripts in qTest. So if I look at qTest after a sprint, I can clearly see I have from a manual perspective this coverage, and from an automation perspective I have this coverage, because the plugin with Jenkins, it's basically pushing my test case, my automated test case, pulling from Bitbucket and pushing to qTest. Okay, so then the build is in predict. The automation team has already committed, executed, and the manual test team, it's a running test case. As the manual test team is running test case, what they do is they update qTest. So this test case passed, this test case failed, there is a bug for this test case. That information gets synchronized back to Jira. And this is really nice because I don't need the developer to basically go to qTest and say, okay, so this is passing, this is failing. The developer can actually see right from Jira if something is failing, and all the test cases will be listed there. The status of those test cases will be marked as pass, fail, and if there is a bug, there is a link for the bug there. So from this integration point of view, I can let the developers continue working on Jira while I have all my consolidated information within qTest. From this point, so we have now executed the test, all the information is synchronized back to Jira. We have also Jenkins pushing my automated test case to qTest. So what we do is just before I talk about the dashboard, there's one specific situation with in our world here, which is we have some customers, we have projects specific for attending customer requirements, and we provide access to our Confluence instance. So customers see all the documentation we're creating for the project, but they don't have access to our Jira, our Jenkins instance, our qTest instance. But somehow I need the ability to say, and this is normally it's a customer requirement. It's in the statement of work that you need to provide customer with the testing results. So what I'm doing now is there is another integration, which is HTML macro. I'm basically pushing the testing results for specific customer projects from qTest to Confluence, which is the page where the customer has access to. So with that, I'm meeting one of the requirements, which is, okay, they want to see real time what's going on with tests. Every time my QA team that is working for customers, they finish one testing phase, all the information goes to Confluence, and the customers can actually see the result of the test execution. Again, through the integration with between the integration from qTest and Confluence. And then just to wrap up here, so you guys can see on the right side there the dashboards, right? And this is I wanted to show real time to not only to developers but also to the QA team, to the build and release team, to the product managers, the CI/CD process. And to be able to show this, the whole process, I needed to collect information from Jenkins, to collect information from qTest, and to collect information from Jira. So all of the three tools, they have APIs. We created this dashboard using a tool called dashing.io. What the dashboard does is it connects to qTest via API and start pulling information to populate this first dashboard. And this is basically what I call KPI. It tells me the number of stories, the test coverage, number of test cases executed, number of bugs. It tells me a lot of information from testing that is happening for the current sprint. And then the second dashboard, it's the build dashboard. What we do is every time we build, every time we deploy a build to a QA environment, we run the test, the automated test. And the dashboard, the second dashboard, it basically says, this is the new build created, it has been deployed. And if some of these widgets start flashing red, and by the way, this is a TV in the development area of the office, so everyone can actually see this. We know that we need to take an action if something is it's flashing red there.
No, this is really good. And when we're talking to customers, it's really great to be able to have potential clients hearing about what current customers are doing or why they chose us. It's always one of the questions that we get asked a lot when we're having initial discussions about just how successful companies have been able to integrate this into their testing lifecycle. So thank you so much. And I guess we're going to move on to some questions. We've had some questions coming in over the webinar, so we're going to move into these current questions that we've got at the moment. Hopefully everyone can hear us now. We'll just have something. Jose's had to go, unfortunately, but any questions that you may have directed towards him, please send them through anyway. There's a Q&A section on there. If you want to write any questions down, we can pass them over and get you some stuff. We've had a couple of things come through. Let's have a look. Let's pick out some of the more interesting ones. So one of the ones we've had here is with the acquisition of HP by Micro Focus. When it comes to the UFT and ALM software development people, did Micro Focus also get them as well? So Lewis, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, certainly. So yes, the entire Mercury and HP testing stack was consumed by Micro Focus, which is quite interesting, really, since they already had the Ball and Silk products from a previous acquisition. So they now actually have two competing testing solutions in the same portfolio. And quite interestingly, Craig and I attended a testing conference recently where they had two booths. One was for Micro Focus, one was for HPE, and they're both promoting different competing products. And we actually asked them how the merger was going, and they just flat out denied.
Well, so they didn't know. They were just like, "Oh, we don't know what's going on," which is quite funny. So
yeah,
there's a lot of confusion going on there at the moment.
Yeah. Got another question coming here. What happens if my quality center version is older than version 10? Can we still migrate the data? So the reason your quality center has to be version 10 is
or above,
obviously, because in version 10, HPE introduced the ability to export QCP files. So as I touched on back in the webinar, our tool will read the QCP files and migrate that information to qTest. So really, we would ask you a question and we would say, if your quality center version is below version 10, then is your data still going to be valid? Because version 10 is, or at least version 9 is at least nearly 10 years old.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have to upgrade to at least version 10 or above, and then we can help you in the process of migrating your data.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of solution, that is something that we can help as part of the entire migration process. So that's what we would talk to you about, support you with, and make sure that we would get that done. So that's not an issue.
Third question here. Can we migrate data from the whole ALM stack, not just quality center? So Craig, do you want to have a crack at that one?
Yeah, I mean, simply put, the answer here is yes. Clearvision, as some of you will hopefully know, is the largest platinum partner for Atlassian. Numerous certified consultants who can assist with moving across the entire ALM. And if need be, we could put the information into the correct systems. We can start to push you across and put you in the libraries in the qTest, Jira, Confluence. We can use Confluence for data storage, but it can also enhance Confluence with something like Linchpin. I think we showed earlier one of our partners, Linchpin, which can create social intranet, can be used to keep the organization up to date and abreast of all the progress throughout the migration. We can also use things like Lucidchart for diagramming and mapping out the process. This is something that we would use to initially show your organization where we're going to start, where we're going to end up, and be able to put the whole process in between as well. So Lewis, you've got some specific examples here of how that would map across?
Yeah, so just sort of some of the HPLM components and just kind of what they could relate to and what we could migrate your data to. So the sort of project planning and tracing components really can just be utilized by Jira. That's essentially what it's doing anyway. Performance Center. So one of our test plant, one of our partners, they do a lot around performance testing, and we can introduce and have a conversation with those guys to bring those into the equation and get you using that instead of the Performance Center. Fortify Security, which is a sort of a code review and code security review part of ALM, can, again, we've got partners with Checkmarks and Sonatype, so we can help you get up and running with those tools for your code review. And then the HP Enterprise Collaboration. So as Craig touched on, that's more of the collaboration tools. We've got Confluence, we've got Linchpin, which can go on top of Confluence. And then there's the other Atlassian products of HipChat and the new Stride coming soon as well. So really all the different HP components, ALM components, we can migrate to different tools around our partners or any of the Atlassian stack. So another question, how does qTest compare in cost to HP Quality Center? Craig?
I mean, obviously that's the big question, isn't it? This is exactly what might hold people back from changing. Might think the cost is going to be too great. Obviously, everyone's going to have a slightly varying cost of what they currently pay for their HP Quality Center or HP ALM. It's going to depend on your size, your licenses, how stable the system is, how much downtime you're going to be having. In comparison, for just licenses and maintenance, we will be a cost saving. That's simple enough to achieve. But then, and also the uptime and the work required in managing and maintaining any third-party bridges and stuff. You won't need any of that. Everything will be integrated. We will help that integration. So you only pay for the features you need. Yeah, I mean there is a cost reduction, we would easily say.
Okay, excellent. Craig, did you wanna? There's another question. This one here. Did you want to give that a one go?
Yes. So, is it common for companies to use two testing tools? I.e., a more lightweight system such as Zephyr and TestRail alongside QC, is it possible to combine all of the data into from both systems into qTest and a chosen ALM such as Jira? Again, it is very common. I think we touched on it earlier on as well. A lot of people will be using Zephyr or TestRail, one of those tools, as a lightweight, easy system to bring in and get used outside of Quality Center. So absolutely, we can export the data. We can pull all the data back into qTest or Jira. Not a problem.
We just had another question pop in. We have a 120 gigabyte database. How long would it take to migrate? So first of all, what we would say is we would have a look at the information you have in that database, and we would try to possibly reduce what we can. We don't want to obviously reduce the amount of time. We want to reduce the size of the database. So we would sit down with you and go, right, is there any data that's possibly redundant, or doesn't need to be brought across straight away?
Yeah, are attachments all necessary?
Yeah, attachments are a big, usually take up a lot of space. So we can try and maybe reduce that size down. And then really, when it comes to the actual migration process, we're going to want to do it in 4 gigabyte chunks. We did touch on earlier that Quality Center, when exporting QCP files over 4 gigabytes, is going to take, it's going to throw a paddy, really.
Yeah, the restriction is really down to the stability of Quality Center.
Yes.
If it can stay up and hold up, we can pull it across, on a nice, even timeline on a regular basis. So, again, we can take this offline. We can come back to you, organise some time to come and have a chat, and put a proper proposal together for that.
But in terms of, it's going to be a very rough timescale. So, we're not going to, don't hold us to this, but if you take 120 gigs, split that 4 gig files, that's 30 different files to migrate. 4 to 5 a day. Yeah.
Webinar, brilliant.
4 to 5 a day, possibly. I reckon you could do maybe 3 to up to maybe 5 a day, just in case there's any teething problems. I mean,
kind of 6 days. Then.
Yeah, sort of maybe 6 days as a rough guide in answer to that question. And then another one that's come in, we've got quite a few. I'm quite pleased at this. What is the best way to think about which projects I should keep and discard? So again, just touching on what we said before about we would try and look to reduce the data. Really, you kind of look at the projects and see when the last time the tests have been run. I'd say, if they haven't been run in months or years, probably years, then it's probably not necessarily to keep. It's kind of we'd sit down and have a conversation with you and go through everything and try and what's the phrase? Weed out the. I can't remember. There's a phrase. We go through the weeds.
Again, trying to think of things on the hop drill.
Yeah,
brilliant. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and then just to finish up, we have got one last question. Is it possible to get a trial of qTest or even a product demo? So that actually brings us nicely to a close as well. So if anyone wants to send some available times and dates through to us, or just give us a contact, send us an email, give us a call. We're happy to arrange a free demo. You can get a free trial of the tool as well. You get my help through that trial as well, setting up your project, setting up users, and trying to get your team in using it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start with, it'll just be, so all of this will start with a conversation. That's going to be the easiest things to do. And lovely, we'll get in touch with everybody who's attended today, and there'll be some contact details for you to send through any available times for demos or discussions to us.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you everyone for your time, and we hope to speak to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.